There's a question I've been asked, more times than I can count. It sounds simple on the surface. Daniel, when should I take my CPP? But after decades of working through retirement plans, I've come to believe that question has a dangerous flaw, built right into it. It assumes there's one answer. There isn't. And today, I want to show you why the advice you've probably heard may be designed for someone who isn't you. I want to tell you about two real situations I've observed over the years. The first is a man. Let's call him Robert. Robert spent 35 years contributing to CPP. He was careful, disciplined, and patient. He delayed his CPP all the way to age 70, exactly as most financial advisors recommend. He died 11 months later. His wife received a fraction of what they had projected. The RRSP they had drawn down to bridge those 10 years was gone. Now, before you take that as an argument for always taking CPP early, let me tell you about Margaret and her husband. They took CPP at 60, both of them. They wanted the money while they could enjoy it, and I understand that completely. But by age 77, their savings were nearly exhausted. They had run out of room to maneuver, and this is where the story changes. Both of these situations involved real people making reasonable decisions, and both of them ended up in a place they didn't expect. So, what went wrong? In each case, the answer is the same. They applied a general rule to a specific life. Most CPP content you will find, online or from advisors, gives you the exact same framework. Take CPP at 60, and you lose 36% permanently. Wait until 70, and you gain 42% permanently. The break-even point is somewhere around age 82 or 83. If you think you'll live past 83, wait. If you don't, take it early. At first glance, that seems perfectly logical. But here's what that framework completely ignores. Your CPP decision does not exist in isolation. It exists inside your tax situation, your RRSP balance, and your TFSA. It depends on your spouse's income, your pension, and your health history. When you factor all of those in, the break-even point shifts dramatically, and the optimal strategy changes entirely, depending on which financial profile you belong to. Over the years, I've noticed something interesting. Most people asking this question fall into one of three very different profiles, and the right CPP strategy for each one is almost the opposite of the others. Let's walk through them, because one of them is almost certainly yours. The first profile is what I call the essential income household. This is a Canadian couple where CPP and OAS will make up the majority of retirement income. RRSP savings are modest, maybe $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000, maybe less. For this profile, delaying CPP to 70 is not just unhelpful. In many cases, it is actively harmful. Here's why. If your income in retirement is low enough, you may qualify for the Guaranteed Income Supplement, the GIS. The GIS is tax-free, and it can add hundreds of dollars per month to your income. But here's the critical detail most people miss. The GIS is calculated based on your income from the previous year. If your CPP is low because you took it at 60, your GIS entitlement increases. If you waited and your CPP is high, your GIS gets clawed back. So for this profile, a lower CPP payment combined with a higher GIS benefit can actually result in more total after-tax income. That's not intuitive, but the numbers bear it out. Most people focus on the headline CPP number. The real question is what your total government income looks like after taxes. Now let's look at the second profile. I call this the middle ground accumulator. This is the profile most YouTube finance videos are actually designed for. This person has between $200,000 and $500,000 in registered savings. They have reasonable CPP entitlements, and they have some flexibility in when they retire. For this profile, the integrated approach often does produce a better outcome. This is where you strategically draw down your RRSP in your early retirement years and delay CPP. Not because CPP at 70 is magic, but because the window between retirement and age 70 is a rare low-income period. Your employment income is gone, your CPP hasn't started, your marginal tax rate may be the lowest it will ever be. That window is an opportunity. You can pull money from your RRSP at a very low tax rate. You can funnel the excess into your TFSA and shrink future forced withdrawals. And this is where the story changes again. Because when you model this scenario properly, the break-even point isn't age 82. It's closer to age 77 or 78. That is half a decade earlier than the number you'll hear in most videos. But, and this is important, this strategy only works if you actually have the RRSP savings to live on during those years without CPP. If you don't, you're not a middle ground accumulator. You're in the first profile, and the strategy is completely different. Now let's talk about the third profile, the late career pension holder. This is someone with a defined benefit pension, modest personal savings, and limited RRSP room. This is the scenario that confuses people the most. Intuitively, you might think, I have a pension, I'm secured, I can afford to delay CPP. But here's what I've observed repeatedly, over decades of looking at these numbers. When your primary income is already guaranteed through a pension, the marginal value of a higher CPP at 70 shrinks considerably. You don't have a large RRSP to draw down strategically. You don't have a meaningful low-income window to exploit. And if your pension income is already pushing you into a moderate tax bracket, a larger CPP at 70 may simply mean more income taxed at a higher rate. And that happens during the years you least need it. For this profile, taking CPP at 65 is often the most balanced choice. Not 60, not 70. Most people focus on the extremes. The real answer for a significant portion of Canadians is in the middle. Now, I want to address something directly, because I've heard this concern many times. Daniel, what if I die young? This is a legitimate question, and I'm not going to dismiss it, the way some advisors do. But I want to offer a reframe. The question isn't really about dying young. The question is, what is the risk you're actually protecting against? CPP, especially at the higher delayed amount, is fundamentally a hedge against living a long time. It's longevity insurance, and like all insurance, you hope you don't need it, but the people who need it most are the ones who underestimated how long they would live. The average 65-year-old Canadian today has a life expectancy approaching 87, not 82, not 79. And that's the average, which means half of all 65-year-olds will live beyond that. I'm not telling you to ignore your family history. If your parents and siblings passed in their late 60s, that is meaningful information. Factor it in. But I am saying, be honest with yourself about whether you're making a financial decision or an emotional one. There is one more factor I want you to hold on to before you decide anything. It's the one almost nobody discusses, and it concerns what happens to the surviving spouse when one partner in a couple passes away. The survivor loses that person's full CPP. They may receive a reduced survivor benefit, but it is substantially lower than the original payment. They also lose the deceased partner's OAS entirely. If the couple had been drawing down their RRSP together to fund a CPP delay strategy, and one of them dies midway through that plan, the surviving spouse is left with reduced income, a depleted RRSP, and years still ahead of them. That is a scenario worth modeling before you commit to any strategy. The math of CPP timing is not just about your lifespan, it's about both of your lifespans and which scenario leaves the survivor in a stronger position. So, where does this leave us? If you are in the essential income household, taking CPP early and preserving your GIS eligibility may genuinely be your best path. If you are in the middle ground accumulator range, the integrated delay strategy, done carefully, often produces significantly better outcomes. If you are a late career pension holder, age 65 is often the sweet spot. Delaying to 70 may generate income you neither need nor benefit from. None of these answers is universal. All of them require you to look at your complete financial picture. That is what makes this decision genuinely difficult and genuinely important. Take the time to model your specific situation. If you can work with a fee-only financial planner, the investment is almost always worthwhile for a decision of this magnitude. And if you can't, at minimum, use the government's own Canadian Retirement Income Calculator. It's free, it's reasonably accurate, and it will show you projections across different scenarios. You've spent decades building toward this moment. The CPP timing decision deserves the same care and precision you brought to earning it.